slides. So by all means, if you have questions, you can ask us throughout the PowerPoint. Oh, my computer just stopped. Yeah, so if you have questions, you can ask us throughout the presentation. I thank you all so much for just joining the webinar. I know this is such a busy time for us all as we are finishing out things for the current semester and for the current calendar year. So your time that you've dedicated to join the webinar is extremely appreciated. All right, so just an overview of today's webinar. So we're going to go over credit completion. I believe this is a very timely topic and subject simply because we are nearing the end of the fall 2024 semester, and many of our spring start students are relying on their spring 24 and fall 24 credit hours for their award renewal starting in spring 2025. So we're going to go over credit completion requirements, credit completion logic, and credit bank logic and ScholarTrack, but then also reporting credit completion. We've had some questions here recently come into our College FA inbox just about credit completion. But then we've also had quite a few students contact the Financial Aid Support Center just about credit completion hours that we're missing. So want to make sure that we touch base on that. Also, we're going to talk about reconciliation deadlines and just briefly going over fall 2024 claims. And then we're going to end the webinar this morning going over spring CBO or tuition and fee exemption grant projections, what that looks like, and what you all can expect from us, but then also expectations that we have from you. We are aware that many financial aid offices across the entire state have new staff members. So some of this will be new information, fresh information. Some of this information may be very old to a lot of you. It could be a great refresher, but again, just without knowing the climate of everyone's office, we just wanted to make sure that we are addressing some of the key items for the current time. So again, some of you, this may be repetitive. You may be an expert in all of these items, but we do know that many of you have new staff members, or many of you are new to financial aid and are new to your position within the current institution that you are serving within. So we're going to start with credit completion requirements. Again, this may be a refresher to Franco-Banner grant recipients must earn at least 24 credit hours each year to renew their full-time award. Students may receive a higher award amount if they earn at least 30 credit hours, but the minimum credit completion requirement that student must earn to renew their Franco-Banner grant is at least 24 hours. Any new students or students who are like first-year students receiving their state financial aid will always receive the on-time award amount. Once they receive their Franco-Banner grant, the following years and the amount that they receive is contingent upon the credit hours that they earned in the prior years. For the 2024-25 academic year, I put that in bold, and I want to make sure that I state this, that for 24-25, students are still receiving our Franco-Banner grant incentives. For 25-26 and beyond, there is a high chance or a high percentage of us removing the incentives. I say there's a high chance, a high percentage, because that decision has not been made completely, because we have not gone before the state budget committee to present about our Franco-Banner schedule of awards. But I do want to mention the incentives for this year because many of your students on your campuses do have incentives. So for the accelerated schedule incentive, students must earn at least 30 credit hours. If they do, they are eligible to receive the incentive as long as it's within their second and third award years only. If the student does not qualify for the base award under the Franco-Banner grant program, they must still earn at least 24 credit hours to receive the academic honors incentive, which is awarded to students who have earned a 3.0 GPA in the prior year, or if they graduate high school with a 3.0 or academic honors diploma. But again, for 25-26, these incentives will more than likely be going away. For the 21st Century Scholarship, students must earn at least 30 credit hours each year to renew their award. Scholars who earn less than 30 credit hours, but at least 24 credit hours may be considered for the Franco-Bannon grant, depending on what their SAI is. You wouldn't believe how many emails we receive from students or parents, and even new staff members who are new to the financial aid world about the 21st Century Scholarship. So I think it's still important to just constantly go over what the credit completion requirements are. For the 24-25 academic year, you may have a student who is a scholar who is receiving the accelerated schedule incentive, and it's only because the student has earned at least 30 credit hours within their prior award year, but their SAI shows them eligible for like the freedom of choice grant. In that case, the student will receive the accelerated schedule incentive amount on top of what their original 21st Century Scholarship award is. Again, this is for 24-25 and earlier for 25-26. This incentive may be going away. For the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship, Next Gen recipients must earn at least 30 credit hours each year to renew their award. Students must also maintain a 3.0 cumulative GPA and submit their Next Gen renewal application to receive their award. To renew their Next Gen award, it's very simple from our perspective. The student has to just log back into their ScholarTrack account, and then go under their state financial aid award applications and then just renew and just agree like, yes, I want to receive this again. And then that's it. The award itself will then recalculate in ScholarTrack, and then the students will receive it. If you have a Next Gen student at your campus who received the Next Gen award during the 23-24 academic year, and maybe you're wondering why you're not seeing it on your files for 24-25, it could simply be because the student just hasn't renewed their application. We do not do this automatically because we want the student to basically notify us that they want to receive it, because there's a service requirement that comes along with Next Gen. And if the service requirement is not fulfilled, then the amount that they receive will then turn into a loan. So we want to make sure that students are aware of what's going on with the Next Gen Award, so they then have to actually submit the renewal application. Since the Next Gen Award is not tuition specific, it is stackable, meaning that it can be used with Franco-Bannon 21st, William Crawford, and with the Mitch Daniels Early Graduation Scholarship, for students who are also eligible for other awards. Moving on to the Adult Student Grant. Adult Student Grant recipients must earn at least 80 credit hours to renew their award. Adult Student Grant recipients who have not previously used a Franco-Bannon 21st or Next Gen would only need to meet the credit completion requirement for the Adult Student Grant to fully satisfy credit completion for all other award types. A quick example. Let's say you have an independent student that used the ASG during the 23-24 academic year. This is their first time receiving state financial aid, and they wanted to go part-time. They were, new to college, or just didn't know how they were going to be able to fit in a full-time schedule, so they decided to go part-time, and the student only earned 20 credit hours, which does satisfy the credit completion requirement for ASG. But for 24-25, the student changes their mind and they want to go full-time. At that point, the student is eligible for Franco-Bannon or 21st if they're eligible for that, but they're not required to have met the 24 or 30 credit hours to receive Franco-Bannon or 21st, simply because they hadn't used it in prior years. We've received quite a few questions about ASG and Franco-Bannon usage here recently. So I wanted to make sure that I put that example in the PowerPoint just to let you all know that a student that's received ASG and has not used Franco-Bannon or 21st prior able to actually receive those within the next academic year, so long as they have met the credit completion requirement to renew their adult student grant. Workforce Ready Grant, there's no credit completion requirement with the Workforce Ready Grant. However, if the student does satisfy the requirements to earn their certificate, we do waive their credit completion requirement for the following academic year. The student will have to file an appeal with that documentation in order for us to waive those hours and to award other state financial aid programs. Any questions about credit completion requirements for any of the awards that I mentioned? Okay, we'll move along to credit completion and credit bank logic. So just as a reminder, there's credit completion requirements for the awards that I just mentioned. Now, how does that logic play into the students receiving their award? So if a student used state financial aid with a credit completion requirement in the immediate prior year, which would have been 23-24, we're going to count credit hours earned towards the student's award renewal if the term start date of the credit hours earned occurs on or after the award start date, but no later than the award end date, and the term, which the academic term at your institution, the term date of the credit hours earned occurs no later than 21 days past the award end date. That is the student's credit completion window. So a quick example, because I know this can kind of be confusing. I said a lot, especially for our institutions that enroll students on a monthly basis or on a continuous basis. A student is planning to attend college in 25-26, which is next year, and they use a Franco-Bannon grant for the current year, 24-25. Their award start date is typically around August. So let's just say for this example, August 23rd, 2024, and the award end date is August 22nd, 2025. The student must have earned hours in the term that began on or after August 23rd and ended no later than 21 days beyond August 22nd, 2025, which would be September 12th, 2025. If a student has earned credit hours within those dates, then those hours will then be considered for the student's credit completion requirements to renew their award. If they've earned 24, they'll receive the on-time Franco-Bannon. If they've earned 30, they'll receive they'll receive the full-time Franco-Bannon if they earn 24 hours. If they earn at least 30 credit hours, they'll receive the on-time Franco-Bannon or the 21st Century Scholarship for next year.
So there's a
If a student,
question
okay.
from Vincent Isom. He's saying for 21st century scholars, what about those who attempted to go outside of the state and returned? Now they apply for adult student grant after a hiatus. Will the 21st century scholars award subsequently be reactivated?
Yeah, so I think it really just depends on what else is happening with that student's credit completion hours. So if the student attended college out of state, but they've used state aid during the academic year, so like let's say they use their state aid during 23-24 just for the fall semester, and they decided to go to another college for spring 25. I'm sorry, for spring 24, and they're like, oh, this isn't for me, and they want to come back during the 24-25 academic year, we will take the hours as within the year that they have a claim for the 21st Century Scholarship. Those hours are then reported into ScholarTrack. However, if the student had not used aid during that time, we're looking at the last year that the student used state aid to determine their eligibility for 21st. Okay, so if a student used state aid in a prior year that wasn't the immediate year, we determine if the student made credit completion using credit hours earned in the prior year's credit completion window. If the student does not meet credit completion within a prior year's credit completion window, we're going to determine if the student met the credit completion using a 12-month plus 21-day window starting with the award end date of the last award year the student used state A with the credit completion requirement plus 1 day. The same hours cannot be used to meet credit completion more than once. And I have an example on the next slide because this can be kind of tricky. So example, the student last used their state aid in 21-22, and they're planning to attend in 24-25. So between 21-22 and 24-25, the student may have stopped out or has gone part-time, or what have you. We first look to see if the student met credit completion in the 23-24 academic year, which is the year prior to the current academic year. Um, if not, the following is applicable. So we determine if the student made credit completion using any consecutive 12-month plus 21-day window, starting with the award end date of the last award year the student used state A with the credit completion window plus 1 day. So let's say the current award window was August 20th, 2024 through August 19th, 2025. We will look to see if the student earned enough hours in any 12-month period plus 21 days starting with August 20th of 2022. So essentially, we're looking between the end date of the award that they last used and the current academic year. So did the student meet credit completion for any consecutive 12 months plus 21 days between the last time they used state aid and the current academic year? If yes, then the award will automatically recalculate and scholar track for the student. If not, then it's not going to take place until the student has met the credit completion requirement across a 12-month period. This is why you see some award start dates have very weird times. Some students' schedule may move to like a spring start award window, although the last claim wasn't on a spring schedule, simply because the student earned the credit completion requirement within a 12-month window. So ScholarTrack is constantly looking to see how many hours a student has earned within a 12-month window, and no claims have been made on award within that same time period. Credit bank logic. So credit bank hours are used to make up the difference in hours if a student fails to meet the credit completion requirement for a particular award. Credit bank hours are used in conjunction with credit hours earned in non-award years to regain eligibility. This wasn't a thing prior to, I believe, the 2020 or 21-22 academic year. Prior to that time, any hours earned in non-award years could not be used in conjunction with credit bank hours. We thought that was a disservice to the student. So credit completion and credit bank logic was adjusted to allow students to use their credit bank hours to add to any hours they've earned during their non-award years to help regain their eligibility. So if a student is a 21st century scholar and they attended college in 23-24, but only earned 21 credit hours, 9 hours from their credit bank will be applied to the eligibility to receive their award during 24-25, regardless if they use the 21st century scholarship in 23-24 or not. Any questions about credit completion or credit bank logic? Okay. Credit completion and credit bank files. Okay, so for our credit completion file, students are added to your credit completion file in the following scenarios. The student used state aid at your institution within the last 8 years. The student or parent entered a request in ScholarTrack to have credit completion data reported, or a CH user or another college financial aid user entered a request in ScholarTrack on the student's behalf to have a credit completion data reported. So we may see a student, call our office like, hey, I should have my award because I met credit completion last year or the years prior. It's missing. So we can go in and we can then put in the credit completion requirement. The student can add the credit completion requirement, or if the student has transferred to another institution, a college user from that institution can also put in the request on the student's account, and then the institution that the student earned those hours at will receive that on their file for them to report those hours into ScholarTrack. A student will be removed from your credit completion file in 3 scenarios. 8 years pass from the time the student first used state financial aid. If they use aid prior to 2013, 2014, they have 8 years from the time they use a state aid starting in 2017, 2018 to use their remaining aid. And the institution reports that the student earned a bachelor's degree They should then be removed from your files, and the student has exhausted 4 years of state aid eligibility. I do want to throw out a small disclaimer. ScholarTrack is not perfect, and there's been many bugs that we have found and had to have addressed when it comes to our credit completion files. So if you come across students that you believe should be removed, or students that are erroneously appearing on your credit completion files, please send those to us at ISFAA at CHE.in.gov for us to investigate. But the logic should work based on the reasons I just mentioned. But again, if you have a one-off situation, or if you have many students who have erroneously appeared, let us know, or students that are not appearing and should be appearing, just send us an email. We can take a look to kind of see what ScholarTrack is not doing correctly, and hopefully have the issue addressed quickly for you. Reporting credit completion. There's 3 ways that credit completion can be reported. It can be reported individually by going to the student details page under the credit completion widget. So if you pull up your student, Sally Scholar, and you scroll down to her credit completion widget, you can manually enter in the hours at that point. There are screenshots later showing what is required of that. But you can go in and you can do that manually. You can also do it individually through the credit completions page. So on the left-hand side on your menu bar, you'll see credit completion. You'll click that and you can report it individually for your student. There's screenshots later to show you what that information looks like if you haven't seen that. But then also you can report, you can do mass reports by requesting and uploading your credit completion file through the report credit completion page as well. If a student on your credit completion file did not attend your institution, please report 0 hours for local hours earned and 0 for the cumulative GPA, or you can simply leave it blank. Right? If you're like, I don't want to put anything, ScholarTrack will still accept that. But if you're wanting to put in zeros, that works perfectly fine. If for any reason the wrong information, and by wrong, if it's not properly formatted, you will get an error file, and there should be a reason why that record errored out. You should then just correct that. But if for some reason the error message isn't clear, or if one doesn't appear, just let us know. But again, if a student is on the file and they did not attend your institution for the year, leave it blank or just put zeros. You can also add additional student records to your credit completion file. We will accept the data if the student record can be found in ScholarTrack. If for whatever reason that student's file isn't in ScholarTrack, you will receive an error file, and the message should then let you know that. If you need to make a correction, let's say you mistakenly reported hours for the wrong term, or you mistakenly reported the wrong amount of hours for the students on the file, you can re-upload another file with the correct hours for the student or students. If the credit completion data is reported and updated by CHE, so ourselves, sometimes students will send us their transcripts, and we can report those hours. Those records will not be locked for updating by institutions. So if we report it, it's not going to be locked, so you can then update it if something is wrong or has been reported incorrectly. If a credit completion transaction changes any hours previously reported by your institution, that transaction will be placed on hold for manual review by someone within our office. And this happens if the hours are reduced. So let's say for fall 24, you reported 15 credit hours for Sally Scholar, but you realize that the student only earned 14 credit hours. If you go back in and re-report those hours will be placed on hold for us to review. As long as we don't think there is a mistake or that this is wrong, we will approve it. But if something seems odd or weird, we typically try to reach out just to make sure that we are approving the correct hours for the student. Okay, so how to report the hours and or what it looks like in ScholarTrack. So this here is if you want to report the credit hours for the student directly from their ScholarTrack account. Under your credit completion widget, you will press the little plus button there. The image on the right will then appear. Your school should then populate. The academic year that you're trying to report the hours for should then pop up, and then you want to make sure that you're putting in the correct term, the local hours earned, and then the GPA that the student has earned at the institution. You can fill in if they've earned a bachelor's degree, and you can also fill in the SAP requirements as well.
We have a question in the chat, Angel.
Okay.
If credit completion file was submitted and there were more errors than accepted lines, can a new file with just the errors corrected be submitted, or does the whole file need to be resubmitted?
You can submit the file with just the ones that air it out. So you don't have to submit the whole file again. You can, it's not going to break anything, but you only have to submit those that had an error. Okay. If you want to, or you can report the credit completion requirements by using the report credit completion tab, like I said, on that right-hand side of your screen under credit completion, you can then report it individually that way. You'll click that button on the left, and then a new screen will appear. You'll see report individual credit completion. You'll click that button, and then you'll type in the student's name, their social security number, date of birth, school, the hours, and their GPA, and then click save. If for some reason everything that's like highlighted red must have data entered. If not, that save button will not be highlighted green. As long as it's highlighted green, you can go ahead and save the data, and then ScholarTrack will then report or display the data that's been reported for the student. And then the last way is by uploading a file. So again, under credit completion on the left-hand side, you'll click report credit completion. And if you want to upload that file, you can request a file. So then that file will then download the information for the student. Their credit hours will then be reported, and then you can upload that file back into ScholarTrack for that data to be accepted. Once that file is uploaded, again, you should then see like a success file, an error file, and then maybe something on hold if you have reduced the amount of credit hours that were previously reported in ScholarTrack. Moving on to reporting credit bank. So who should report the credit bank hours? The institution where hours are earned for dual credit should report those hours for the student. If AP or IB hours are awarded by an institution, the institution awarding those credits should report those hours. Conversely, if a student does not attend the institution awarding those hours should be removed if previously reported. So if you have a student and their transcript has been accepted and the student has some AP hours that they've earned while in a high school, you should then report those hours so long as you've accepted them into your institution. If for whatever reason that student transfers to another institution, those hours will not remain or should not remain in ScholarTrack. The new institution that student transfers to, the student should then make sure that that institution accepts those hours. If they do, those hours should then be reported. If not, those hours should not be re-reported into ScholarTrack. CHE staff members can also report dual hours if the student provides their transcript to us. Most times we like to verify with the institution that those hours were earned through, just to make sure that they are accurate. We can then report those into ScholarTrack. Most times we'll do that and place a comment on the student's account and attach the transcript just in case there's discrepancy or questions later on. However, the institution where the hours are earned should then report those hours. How should credit bank data be reported in ScholarTrack? The same way that you're reporting the local credit hours earned, so they can be reported through a credit bank file. But then also CHE adds students to the credit bank file by matching CHED's data to ScholarTrack. This can also be done through the credit bank widget on the student's details page, but then also it can be reported individually under the credit completion tab in ScholarTrack as well. So just as a refresher, on the left-hand side, under credit completion, you'll see report credit bank. After you request that file, the students that have requests for your institutions will then appear, but you can also add students to that file as well. And then once you have all the data on your credit bank file, you want to make sure that you upload the data back into ScholarTrack. If you want to report it individually under the student's account, you can then go to Sally Scholar's account in ScholarTrack under the credit bank. There's a widget there. You'll click that plus sign, and then you can enter in the data, the amount of hours that the student has earned. And then if you want to report individual credit bank hours under credit completion, you'll see credit bank, and then you can report those individually as well with the required data, as long as all the fields are entered, have data entered in them. Save should then highlight, and then you can click save to have those hours reported into ScholarTrack.
Got another question for you, Angel.
Absolutely.
This is from Miriam. How are incomplete grades handled? Let us say that a student enrolled in 30 credits for the 2024-2025 academic year, but the student has incompletes for several classes during the spring 2025 semester. Let us say that that student has 9 credits of incomplete for the spring 2025 semester. Does that mean the student has only 21 credits earned for the 2024-25 academic year, and that student would not be eligible for renewal of their 21st Century Scholarship for the following academic year?
Yes, so incomplete hours should not be reported to ScholarTrack. If the student completes those classes later, you can then go back for that term. You can then go back to add those hours in for spring 2025. But the only hours that should be reported are the hours that the student has earned a D or better. Any other questions about reporting credit completion?
Is there a time limit expiration to report incompletes?
No, there is not. As long as the student has passed the class, you can go back and report. If the student, let's say they retake the class for that semester, you can then report that class to updated credit hours as long as they have earned the hours they failed. Okay. Reconciliation dates. So this is a like just a one slide information. I don't think there's too much more after this for reconciliation dates, but so the reconciliation start dates are typically set 3 weeks or 21 days before the first day of the academic term. Are typically set as the last day of the month following the month containing the last day of the academic term. That's a mouthful, so let me see if I can make it simple. Let's say the last day of the term is December 17th. The reconciliation date or deadline is January 31st, 2025. So it is the last day, the month following the end of the academic term. So again, if the last day of the academic term is December 12th, the reconciliation date will be January 31st of 2025. And that's the day where we're like, hey, make sure your claims are reported then. If they're reported after that date, then the claim will be placed on hold for us to review. Most times they are approved. If something seems off, we may reach out to you just to make sure that it is a correct claim. But in most instances, those later claims or claims after the reconciliation date are approved. Claims may be made on or after the reconciliation start date, but no later than the reconciliation deadline for the given academic term. If you fail to claim an award before the reconciliation deadline, you have up to 365 days to claim. The claim will be put on hold for a manual review by a CHE staff member and will be released shortly. On hold claims are reviewed on a daily basis. You may be asking, why would I need to insert a claim after 300 days or after the academic year has ended. Well, there's instances where a student may have an appeal approved late, depending on when the student has submitted the appeal, but also depending on when our appeals committee has reviewed and or approved that appeal. So that may have taken place after the end of the academic year or after the end of the academic term. You can then insert a claim at that point. As many of you have been made aware, there's been a delay with students who are non-resident students but are eligible for our military aid. We're still ingesting those ICERs, and we may still continue to ingest those ICERs after the end of the 24-25 academic year. At that point, if an ICER is uploaded into ScholarTrack at a later date, then yes, you can then go back and still insert a claim. After the end of the award date, the award will then move from ready to claim to expired. You can still insert claims on expired awards. It will go on hold for us to review. But again, we see this in most scenarios where an appeal has been approved for the student, or if like a verification process took longer than what it should have at your institution for the student, or if a later transaction has come in that's changed the student's SAI and has changed their eligibility for their award, then yeah, the award itself may be created late. And by late, it could also be expired. But yes, a claim can still be inserted at that point. It will just go on hold for us to review. Is there a question? I think I heard someone unmute maybe. Okay. Any questions about reconciliation deadlines and dates? Okay. Okay, so claiming fall 2024A. Majority, if not all, claims for fall 2024 should be inserted in the ScholarTrack, just because we sent out an email a couple months ago asking for claims to be inserted by a specific day. Again, this has really helped us to plan projections properly for the fiscal. Those of you that have done that, thank you so much. Those of you who have reached out and said like, hey, we're not able to, for whatever reason, based on your institution's term dates or claim dates or what have you. Thank you for at least reaching out and letting us know. And so we've truly appreciated that. The fiscal and appropriations for some of our awards have been a little tight, which I think we've tried to do our best with communicating that to you all. So thank you for at least just understanding and just really just working alongside us to make sure that either projections are sent in or just letting us know when you will have those claims inserted into ScholarTrack. Outstanding claims due to missing ICERs are being addressed daily. As I mentioned, you all may be aware that we are still unable to submit ICER requests to the FAFSA partner portal. So we're continuing to manually search for any missing resident and non-resident ICERs. Those of you who have sent lists of students to College FA, thank you so much. Hopefully we've got them in and search for them in a timely manner so that you can process those claims. If there are still any outstanding or missing ICERs, please let us know. Please also continue to submit those ICER requests into ScholarTrack. We do check that, but then also if you send it to us manually, we're able to grab those and do a search. As a reminder, any student that is a non-resident student or has an address out of state that their latest transaction is prior to like July 24th or 26th, we will not be able to receive those, or we have not received those. And we haven't received those simply because we did not get access to the non-resident ICERs until after that time in July. And so what we've done was we've asked the students and also the institutions to work with the students and encouraging them to log back into their FAFSA to initiate a new transaction so that way we can receive that. Again, the latest transaction should be after like the latest date in July of 2024. At that point, we can receive those. We can receive those ICERs. I've reached out to many students asking them to log back into their FAFSA. And either add another school or change their address from ST to street or something of that nature, just so we can get a new transaction and get those ICERs. Again, we are searching for them daily. This is a manual process, so it is taking a little longer. But if you have students on your campuses that you believe and they believe should be eligible for like a CBO award or a Next Gen award, but you do not see that in Scholar Track because you do not see their 24-25 FAFSA, send us an email and we can, with their name and date of birth, and we can verify their eligibility. I've tried to send like a screenshot just as a checks and balance to show you all like, hey, the student is eligible. Please make sure that you are crediting and or awarding the student their aid until you're able to insert those claims. We are aware that because of the delay of some of the non-resident ICERs, that claims for CBO and Next Gen may be inserted after the reconciliation deadline, which is fine. We are aware of this. Also, I do want to mention that we have constantly asked and we have pushed FSA to fix this functionality just because it's easier and it helps reduce like user error. Because what we'll do, we'll go ahead and just export and upload those ISA requests to the FAFSA Partner Portal, and we usually get them instantly. Now the process, it just takes a very long time for us to do that. But FSA has said that during the 25-26 cycle that this functionality should be fixed, but we're just not sure when. Any questions about fall 2024 claims? Okay, the last item on the agenda for the webinar, CBO spring projections. So what to expect for spring 2025. The commission is seeking a budget increase for the tuition and fee exemption grant fund. The request is to increase the appropriation for fiscal year 26 and to retroactively make us whole or make claims whole for fiscal year 2025. The goal is for us to be able to cover all of the claims by retroactively receiving funds for the fiscal year 25, so we can cover those claims for you. An update will be provided after the state budget committee later this month. All CBO claim projections, we're asking for spring 25 CBO claim projections to be submitted to College FA before March 28th. And Josh and Michelle will be reaching out to ISFA Government Relations to determine the order of claim approvals. We've kind of discussed what some options are for approving the claims. We want to make sure that it is fair to everyone. And again, the goal is to make sure that all claims are covered with the appropriation, but we do want to work with the ISFA leadership team just to make sure that we're not making the decision ourselves, but that we are including those that represent ISFA. So an email will go out either later this month or early in January from myself, Josh, or Michelle. And just as a reminder, the projections allow us to evaluate the difference between the claim amounts and the remaining balance of the appropriation. You can start submitting those claims as early as possible. The earlier they're submitted, the easier it is for us to say, hey, this is what the plan is for processing those claims for spring 2025. The appropriation is $32 million as of now. I'll be transparent. For the current claims, we have processed a little over $18 million. So from our perspective, and maybe even yours, we do plan to exceed the appropriation. So Again, we have plans to make sure that the claims are covered for spring 2025, and more information for that will go out, like I said, either later this month or early in January. Are there any questions about projections or CBO claims? Are there any questions about anything that I addressed or anything that I didn't address? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this time because I have no other slides on the PowerPoint, and